good morning. Heather here. I wanted to come on here today and answer a few questions that I get a lot. The other day, someone sent me a message on my Instagram on how to blend my images together and how I make them look not like a collage. So he says here that his still look like a montage put together. Alright, so I was just going to run through what I did with this image and how I blended in the stock images that I was using. So the first thing that you want to think about going into compositing is your lighting. So with this particular image, I wasn't thinking I was going to do a composite. So I knew right off the bat it was overcast, it was flat light. So when I was looking for stock, I wanted to find something that was similar. There wasn't, it's not harsh lighting. Everything's kind of a flat that I can adjust and work with. When you're doing composite, when you have an idea in mind, the very first thing you want to do is actually look for the stock first. I find that some people, they go in, they take their pictures, and then they try to find the stock. But I think it's the opposite. You really have to think about this. You want to find your stock. You need to know where the lighting is, where the direction of light is. You can see there's some light shining on her face here. So you need to know the direction of the light of your stock so that when you're photographing your subject, you can light them the same way and be able to have the lighting match up. So I think that's really important. So that's number one. Number two is the exposure of your stock. So what I did with this image is when I brought the wings in, if I had her placed where she was, it would have been off the frame. So I didn't want that to happen. So what I did was I actually made a copy of her. Oh, sorry, where is she? Right here. I made a copy of her and then I got rid of her on the backdrop and I just made some adjustments. So you can see if I take away her and the wings, I kind of took her out of the original and then I placed the copy of her a little bit more off to the side so that I can put the wings in behind her and not have them going off frame. So that's what I did there. And then when I was adjusting the exposure, you want to think about, how light it is and how dark it is. And as you can see, the wings are too dark for the rest of the image. The rest of the image is quite flat light. So this is just too dark. So I went in and I adjusted the levels. So because everything is quite flat, when I did my levels, all I did was bring the blacks up a whole bunch to make this also look like flat lighting and kind of washed out. The third thing that you want to think about is the color. So as you can see, everything is quite blue, but the wings look quite yellow. So I went in and adjusted the color adjustments here. The color adjustments here. So I added a whole bunch of cyan and a whole bunch of blue to match the background. I did not like the color casting, so then I went into my hue and saturation and just desaturated it a whole bunch and brought the darkness down a bit. Again, kind of made it more in the blue area. So I adjusted that color for it to match up here. The fourth thing you want to think about is your depth of field. So as you can see here, I added a Gaussian blur and some noise onto it. So you can see that it's sharper than the subject. So you add that Gaussian blur on there, and it's kind of softens it and makes it match up more with the subject. And then if you get in real close, you can see my original has quite a bit of grain on it. This one does not really, so if you add some grain onto it, it'll help kind of match that up so it looks a little more realistic as well. And the very last thing that you want to think about is your highlights and your shadows. So she would be casting a shadow because you can see the light is still shining on her face here, just along here, along her arm. Here is the highlight. So her back would be casting a shadow on this wing. So you want to add your shadows in. And then you want to think about highlights. So because the light is coming in this way, this wing, of course, would be a little more highlighted. So you add that highlight in as well. Also, she would be a little more dark along here because this wing would also be casting a shadow. So you got to think about the shadows on your subject as well. So I have her here. I think I darkened her a little bit to match up with the wing as well. Then I added in the shadow. Then I added in more highlight along the front here. All right, so again, those are the 5 essential things that you want to think about when you're blending your images together in Photoshop. What I would do now is once I get all the layers in, how I like them, all the shadows, I flatten it and then I make some other adjustments over the entire image. So number 1, you want to think about your lighting of your subject and how it's going to match up with the stock images that you're using. Number 2, the exposure, how light and how dark your stock images are compared to your original image. Your color, you want to match up your stock images and your subject to the backdrop color. So if one, like the wings were too yellow, I needed to change them and make them more blue. Your depth of field and grain, you want to think about that. And your highlights and your shadows. So this is just kind of a quick explanation of what you can do in Photoshop to blend your images together. If you want more of a breakdown of each of these steps in separate videos, please comment below to let me know if that would be helpful to you. And please follow me on Instagram and subscribe to this channel if you want more information about Photoshop and compositing images. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.